Hi, this is Blaine Cluten for Cluten Law, answering the question today about what is a fair divorce settlement. Now, the first part of this question is that I don't think that it's asking what's a fair divorce settlement in terms of custody and parenting time. I think it's about property division. And in Oregon, there's a couple of things that we need to keep in mind. The first is that the facts and circumstances are going to really dictate what is a fair settlement. So the first thing to be said is that you're probably going to need to talk to an attorney to understand how the facts are going to balance out and factor into what an actual fair settlement in your particular circumstances are. But the second thing is understanding what all the property at issue is. And whether it's technically marital property or marital assets. And that has to do about when the property was actually acquired, whether it was acquired during the marriage or before the marriage, and then whether those assets were then commingled or not. And there's case law and statute about that. But let's just assume for the sake of argument that these are all marital assets, that it's all part of the divorce case, is all the property that's at issue. The next thing that the party is probably asking about, or this question's really about, is if one person's the breadwinner and one person was stay at home, and so one person feels like they contributed more to the marriage, does that mean that we need to have offsetting property division and one person should receive more than the other? And in general, in Oregon, we have a presumption of equal contribution. I'm going to put a link to the statute in the description field about that equal contribution. That is a rebuttable presumption, and you can overcome that presumption, but it's a very large hill to climb. But that being said, now let's assume that there is the presumption of equal contribution. This is all marital property. So now how are we going to divide this up for purposes of a settlement? The last thing to look at is what's a just and proper distribution in all the circumstances, considering the parties. Now, in Oregon, what this means under the case law and under the statute is that this essentially becomes a math problem. And we're going to take all the assets on one side and all the liabilities on the other side, add those two things up, and then split that property up among the parties in a just and equitable way. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be one for one, the same type of property from one person to the other. One person can get the real property, the other person can get an equalizing judgment of cash. It doesn't necessarily matter about that, but at the end, everything needs, if we're looking at both sides of the ledger, it needs to be just and equitable and just and proper under the circumstances. And when you're considering all these things, it kind of makes sense if you're going from step to step to step and following the statute, that ultimately you would end up at what is a just and proper division. But again, like I said at the beginning, there's a lot of facts that can kind of change this analysis and along the way. And so what's a fair divorce settlement for your particular case can be very, very different from what is the statutory presumption, what is the general case law saying, and does that case law apply to my particular set of facts and circumstances? If you have further questions, please do talk to a legal expert. They're going to be able to help guide you, depending on the nature of your circumstances, to what would be a fair divorce settlement in your case. Also keep in mind that a fair divorce settlement is one that not only follows the statute, but reaches a resolution short of trial and does something substantially similar to what the trial judge probably would have done at trial. It just saves you a bunch of time and money. This is Blaine Cluten for Cluten Law. Thank you.